Hello my viewers and welcome back to our channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, then please do so because you will find our videos interesting and intriguing. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up by tapping on the like button, and feel free to be part of the commenters squad by sharing your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now today we're diving into a crucial conversation sparked by the recent elections. In a powerful moment captured on video, a Pamkala woman's attempt to ask black people a question is interrupted by Amy Chen, who delivers a poignant message. Now, Amy Chen emphasizes that it's time to stop expecting black people, especially black women, to perform emotional labor for others. Now, this sentiment is echoed by another Asian man who discusses the surprising voting patterns of Asian Americans in the election. Despite Kamala Harris being half Asian, only 56% of Asian Americans voted for her, compared to 63% who voted for Biden 4 years ago. Now, this underperformance raises important questions about solidarity, identity, and the complexities of intersectional policies. So let's break it down and explore what this means for different communities, as different Asian people finally speak out on the elections. With that said, take a look at the videos. I will be right back.
I have a genuine question for black women, specifically. So if you're not...
I know I'm your option B, but I'm going to stop you right there because we all failed black women, and not just black women, we all failed black people, which means that especially right now, we do not get to ask them to do emotional labor for us. So as my friend Edmund has been so aptly putting it, do whatever you want to feel better, but please stop asking black women to validate your performative actions for you. Don't worry, I do have a co-pilot managing my tech. Please try not to let guilt and disappointment consume you into hopelessness because you did the best that you could voting for Harris. A lot of us are facing difficult realities in terms of what is and isn't enough work in our communities, but you, first and foremost, are a human being who is worthy of protection, worthy of dignity, and worthy of having your rights protected. Do not internalize this punching down that white liberals are doing on marginalized communities, blaming us for the election results, because it's easier than acknowledging the work that they need to do in their communities. It's easier than holding their party accountable. Keep in mind that if white voters had voted the way that the Hispanic community did or the Asian American community did, right now, those very people who are punching down and assigning blame would be celebrating an easy Harris victory. So yes, as members of marginalized community, any increased voter support for Trump is deeply concerning. But while you're feeling disappointed in yourself or what you didn't know, I'm celebrating you for being willing to acknowledge that there is work outside of voting to be done, because that means that you are empowered and will endeavor to do that work until that work coupled with voting is enough.
I want to discuss how Asian Americans voted in last night's election because that was extremely unexpected. 56% of Asian Americans voted for Kamala as opposed to 63% who voted for Biden from 4 years ago. This is honestly quite underperformance because she's half Asian, so I figured more Asians would vote for her, but I guess that's not the case. There's also a large percentage of people that voted third party, so I guess all of those national polls before the race were useless.
Recently, I found out that Vietnamese Americans are the only Asian group in America that lean Republican. Yes, out of all the Asians, we Vietnamese Americans are Republicans. 51% of us are anyways. Not myself, sorry. But I'm not surprised because I have encountered, obviously, a lot of Vietnamese people in my family, just hearing around kind of Vietnamese radio and things like that, what they talk about and things like that. And yes, they're very Republican. And the crazy thing to me is this, which is that I think one of the big reasons why they became very pro-Trump is because of his stance against China. They don't like China, which I understand based on just kind of Vietnamese history and everything, right? With communism and everything. But the crazy thing to me is that when someone looks at them, when someone looks at me, they don't have some sort of scanner that tells them, oh, this one, look at his eyes, he's Vietnamese, he's not Chinese. No, fool. When they look at you, when they look at me, they just see a Chinese person, an Asian person. They don't know the difference between us. So when they say Chinese, they actually are talking about you too, right? And let's not get even into my mom and aunts and uncles and stuff, they're always talking about how, oh my God, all this Vietnamese food is so expensive now. The prices are crazy high. Wait until the tariffs hit. You want Trump? He's going to bring those tariffs, and you think it's only for China? No, it's all your Vietnamese food. All the food that you eat, the only things you will eat. All of that stuff will double in price or quadruple or whatever the heck. And then you will see. I try to tell them this, but they will not listen. But Vietnamese Americans, get your act together. I'm just glad that hopefully the younger generation, you will change this. Hopefully.
As I've been telling people for nearly a year, tag me in the video where I ever told anybody not to vote or where I even said that I was not going to vote. You won't be able to because I never said either of those things. You listen to people who are being paid by the Democratic Party intentionally misrepresent what I said for views and to alienate and vilify anybody whose politics and beliefs were not in lockstep with their own. You became emotionally invested in your anger over what they told you that I said, such that you refused to listen to what I actually said, which was that Biden was not going to win re-election in 2024 because there are too many people who are angry about his response to Israel and Palestine, and too many people who are sick and tired of the Democratic Party's sense of entitlement to votes on the left, and sick and tired of the pattern of broken promises to marginalized communities for progress. So the party would do well to focus its efforts on organizing a campaign around a younger and stronger candidate and listening to and actually being responsive to voters on the left. But for another 8 months, we were told it's too late for that and Biden is the only one who can beat Trump. But then in July, we were told, just kidding, Biden is stepping down. Now let's see if one of the least popular presidential hopefuls from 2020, whose job for the past 3.5 years as vice president has literally been to do nothing other than support Biden, can win being forced to run a surprise last-minute campaign with 107 days to go before the election. And she didn't win. So now you are looking for other people to blame, rather than acknowledging that it is the Democratic Party's own hubris that set Harris up for failure that put us in the situation that we are currently in. So you can take accountability for that as well as several seats, or you can confirm what a lot of people already know, which is that Democrats, white Democrats in particular, are elitists who do not listen because they think they know better than everybody else.
Compared to the overall American voters, first-generation Chinese American voters probably make all the posters feel so blessed. Because they are all single-issue voters that only care about immigration policy. Republican voters want immigration policy to be strict because they are afraid of the newcomers. Those younger, more skillful Chinese people will come to this land of freedom and steal their jobs. Democrat voters want the immigration policy to be the same or looser, which means the overall environment will be better for them, and their life as first-generation immigrants will be significantly easier. I just like that they never change.
Oh good, I'm so glad that somebody brought this up because it has been about a year to the day since I dared to express criticism of Biden's handling of Israel and Palestine, while people like you wanted me to stay silent. And as harrowing a lesson as it was to learn at the time, I am eternally grateful to the very white women whom you mention for giving me an object lesson that I will never forget in the meaning of the phrase, cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds. Because up until that day, I had naively thought that Democrats, liberals, were the safe space, that we were the good ones, that we seek to hold our party to account for their misdeeds and press them to do better, that we encourage critical thinking and honesty, that we meet disagreement with civility and discourse, that we meet one another's concerns with compassion. And the violent vitriol and the graphic threats that I received from many of you for daring to deviate from the script gave me some very strong insight as to how our nation came to be so divided down to the household level, and left me with no doubt that it does not matter whom you voted for. Many of you will lean into your whiteness with your sense of entitlement to control other people's thoughts, actions, opinions, and votes. And I told you a year ago that it is not the pro-Palestinian movement or any marginalized community that is tired of the cycle of broken promises from the Democratic Party that is going to lose Biden re-election. It is the unresponsiveness of the party itself, the failure of its constituents to push the party to do better, and it is your failure to address the majority of your mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters who vote for Trump who are going to lose Biden re-election. So we are getting what we got because you failed to do any of that. And the deflection and the blaming and the punching down is completely on brand, so A, for consistency. But what sucks is that while you refuse to turn around and face your own community and do the work that you need to do, other people are being hurt first and worst. I stood with y'all, don't turn your back on us. This comment was left on a Black woman's video. And until white women unlearn this individualism and put in the work in their community with other white women, until white women learn to prioritize their identity as women over their identity as white, no woman of the global majority, much less Black American women, need you standing with them like that. When she said that white women have repeatedly shown us who they are, she's not just talking about how they voted in 2024, or how they voted in 2020, or how they voted in 2016. Let's talk about voting rights themselves. How many of you think of the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920 as being when women got the right to vote? But it wasn't. It wasn't until the 1960s that the Black civil rights movement won the right to vote for all citizens. Please take a moment to deconstruct your comment, because what it shows is that your allyship has been performative and transactional. Whether you admit it or not, the reason why you have stood with Black women is because you expected something in return. And right now, Black women have every right to be pissed at all of us who come from communities that either voted in the majority for Trump or where there was an increase in votership for Trump. Now, first of all we should ever see of Black women is their backs, because all we should be doing is following their lead. But right now, they have every right to tell us, do not follow us. We do not need or want you hanging on. Something that I've thought a lot about this week is that a majority of Asian American voters voted for Harris. However, there was an increase in Asian American support for Trump. And a majority of my followers are Black. If every single one of them were to decide to unfollow me because they have decided to divest from all other communities and to invest their time, energy, and money in their community only, that would be completely justified. And it would not matter what I as an individual have done. And if that were to happen, I would continue to work just as hard to spread the same messaging that I do, because the work that I do is not something to be performed for Black people, and the motivation is not because I think it is helpful to Black people. I do what I do because it is what is right for humanity. Now, I am not saying that I am always right, but I am saying that is always the guiding principle. So until you learn to stand on your own 2 feet and face your community and do the work that is necessary among white women, you do not have the right to ask, much less demand, anything of Black women.
Now, Amy Chen's words have struck a chord, and it's essential to acknowledge the truth behind her statement. She emphasizes that Black people should not be expected to perform emotional labor for others, particularly when it comes to educating and validating the actions of those who claim to be allies. Now, Chen's message is a powerful reminder that marginalized communities, especially Black people, have been shouldering the burden of fighting for justice and equality for far too long. It's time for others to step up and take responsibility for their own actions and education. The fact that some individuals are only realizing the importance of solidarity and collective action is a testament to the emotional labor that Black people have been undertaking. It's really exhausting and unfair to expect Black people to constantly explain, justify, and validate their experiences and emotions. As she so eloquently puts it, it's time for others to take a step back and reflect on their actions and biases. Rather than relying on Black people to educate and validate them, individuals must take responsibility for their own actions. Now, when we look at the numbers, Asian American support for Donald Trump was 5 points higher this election cycle than in 2020, marking a slight shift to the right. Now, the NBC News exit poll of early and election day voters indicated that 54% of Asian American voters chose Harris, while 39% voted for Trump. Harris lost 7 points compared to Asian American Pacific Islander AAPI support for Biden in 2020. Now, the founder of AAPI data said that the polling shows a continuing shift that began with the 2016 presidential election cycle and Trump's entry into the political arena. 2012 represented the high watermark in Asian American support for a Democratic presidential candidate, and it has been going down ever since. He said, "The pendulum has started to swing back." Now, he pointed out that previous polling showed that the economy was a major priority for the Asian American electorate, and it is also one that proved to be a challenge for the Democratic Party, particularly given the perception that the Republican Party is stronger economically. High inflation rates in the aftermath of COVID, he added, didn't help. If you're unemployed or employed, if you're retired or working, everyone feels the pain of inflation. That was a significant headwind for the Democratic Party, including Harris. Now, in the NBC News exit poll, an estimated 514 Asian American voters were surveyed across all 50 states, including 600 polling locations nationally. Surveys were conducted in English and Spanish. Now, he noted that survey isn't conducted in Asian languages, posing a limitation in the data. He added that the sample is not designed to be specifically representative of Asian American voters, rather to help predict elections nationally and at the state level. Asian Americans generally live in blue states and districts, but the survey tends to pull from more competitive areas, he said. Now, from 1992 to 2012, the Democratic Party experienced powerful gains among Asian American voters, in part because of Bill Clinton's economic policies. And the trend accelerated after the September 11, 2001 tea attacks, when the GOP was seen as unfriendly or hostile to immigrants and communities of color. When Barack Obama ran for a second term 11 years later, nearly 3/4 of Asian Americans voted for him. But Trump's first presidential campaign proved to be a turning point due to his relentless messaging around the economy. He succeeded in creating an impression that the economy was doing horribly. It seems to have made a difference in the last decade. Additionally, for some newer immigrants, issues like identity and civil rights that are generally associated with Democrats may not be priorities, as they may not fully understand or identify with the fight for minority rights in the U.S. Naturalized citizenship makes up the majority of the Asian American vote. There's a significant difference about cultural attitudes towards civil rights. If you are an Asian American who was born here and speaks English as a first language, you are much more receptive to terms like criminal justice reform, cross-cultural solidarity, and Black Lives Matter. Now, Young said that the shift right is still considered incremental, and that's because the Asian American community does not vote monolithically. Within Asian American groups, there are different patterns and behaviors, Young said. We don't see that type of massive swing in AAPI voters nationally. Different Asian Americans are moving in different directions. Now, what I can say is that palm color supremacy and the patriarchy are positions that will ultimately hurt all of us. But it will, of course, have the most immediate and devastating effects on those whom these systems were intentionally designed to harm. People upholding these systems, whether it's because they are privileged in them or they simply hope for runoff benefits that the privileged reap, are displaying American individualism at its fullest and its worst. Clinging to these systems instead of confronting the nation's challenges directly by engaging in real vulnerable work is a broken, ugly way to approach each other and humanity. The fact that this is already done, despite some non-Black individuals claiming they voted for Kamala Harris, the reality is that a majority of their community didn't follow suit, and it's time to face the facts and acknowledge the lack of solidarity. For far too long, Black people have been expected to have everyone's back, while our own struggles and concerns are ignored. It's really exhausting and unfair. As Amy Chen so eloquently put it, Black people should not be expected to perform emotional labor for others. And it's not something that Black people are going to do now. It's time for others to step up and take responsibility for their actions and education. A recent survey found that 65% of Black Americans say the increased national attention on racial inequality has not led to changes that improve their lives. This is a stark reminder that words are empty without action. It's time for tangible change and genuine solidarity. Black people have been clear about their vision for social change, including reparations, significant reforms to the criminal justice system, and economic empowerment. However, there's a deep-seated pessimism about whether these changes will ever materialize. It's time for non-Black individuals to listen, learn, and take action. And it's time to acknowledge the historical injustices and systemic inequalities that have plagued communities of color and minority groups. And it's time to show up, not just with words, but with tangible actions and a commitment to solidarity. Now, for some, the recent election has left many in the Asian American community wondering why Kamala Harris, who is half Asian, didn't receive more support from her own community. As one Asian man aptly put it, you would expect Asians to have shown up more for Kamala, but it seems that her Asian heritage never mattered. Now, this lack of support is particularly surprising given the significant role Asian American voters could have played in swing states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Michigan. Moreover, Kamala Harris has been a vocal advocate for the Asian American community, hosting Diwali and Lunar New Year celebrations and even an Asian-themed night market at her residence in Washington. Despite her efforts to connect with the Asian American community, it appears that her Asian heritage was not enough to secure their support. And this raises important questions about identity, community, and the complexities of multiracial heritage. As Kamala Harris herself has said, I've never had an identity crisis. I guess the frustration I have is that people think I should have gone through such a crisis and need to explain it, but I didn't. We have finally come to the end of the video, but what do my viewers have to say? Share your thoughts as well in the comment section. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video as I bring you another interesting video.